I thought I was living in a fairy tale, and that my husband, the perfect Liam Turner, was my happy ending. But everything fell apart with one message on his phone. It turned out that betrayal wasn't the worst thing. The scariest thing was finding out who was behind it. I'm Emily, 32, female, and for most of my adult life, I honestly believed I hit the jackpot with Liam Turner. We'd been together since college, 7 years of ride or die, shared apartments, broke nights eating ramen, those stupid inside jokes that make people roll their eyes because you're that couple. When he proposed, it felt like everything we'd built was finally being recognized by the universe. 4 years into marriage, everyone thought we were disgustingly perfect. I thought so too, until the small cracks started showing. It wasn't one big betrayal. At first, it was quiet, like the sound of a clock ticking in an empty house, subtle, rhythmic, unrelenting. The first change came when Liam started staying late at work. He's a marketing director, deadline-driven, client-heavy, always one more call. I didn't question it. I trusted him. I wanted to trust him. But then came the new cologne, the sudden interest in his wardrobe, the way his phone started living face down on the counter. The man who used to forget to charge it now guarded it like nuclear codes. And then there was Helen, my mother-in-law, 61 going on 16, with pearls for armor and disapproval for perfume. She never liked me, too middle class, too artsy, too independent. When she hugged me, it always felt like a social obligation, not affection. Liam said I was imagining it. But you can feel when someone's praying, you'll fail. She was the kind of woman who smiled sweetly while planting landmines. When we got married, she forgot to include me in the family portrait. When I got a promotion, she said, "That's cute, dear, but don't let your career make you neglect your home." Once, she even told me, "You're lucky Liam takes after me. He deserves someone who brings grace to his life." I laughed at the time, but it stayed lodged in me like a splinter. So when Liam started changing, I knew exactly whose voice was whispering in his ear. Still, I didn't let myself see it. I told myself he was stressed, that Helen just wanted what's best for him, that love means patience. But then I found the text. It was stupidly mundane, just a ping on his screen while he showered. I wasn't snooping. I was literally turning off his alarm when the preview popped up. "Can't wait to see you tonight, Lily." My stomach dropped. I opened it before I could think. Threads, dozens of them. Late night jokes, pictures, flirty banter, talk about last time. And one message that made my hands go cold. "Your mom said she'll cover for you again if Emily asks." I remember just standing there holding his phone, my reflection in the black screen between messages. My heart was pounding, but my head was eerily calm. I scrolled. Lily, his client, wasn't just someone he'd met by chance. She was the real estate agent Helen introduced him to at a charity gala 6 months ago. That's when it all clicked. Every weird business dinner, every vague networking event. Every time Helen had called to say, "Liam's such a busy man lately. You must miss him terribly." She knew. She'd orchestrated it.
Hey guys, real quick before we keep going, don't forget to sub and drop a like if you're enjoying the story. Thank you very much. Enjoy watching.
When he came out of the shower, humming like nothing was wrong, I smiled. I actually smiled. And that scared me more than anything, because that was the moment I realized I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. I was going to destroy him, both of them, but on my terms. For the first 2 weeks after the text, I lived like a ghost in my own house, present but on another frequency. I made coffee. I watered the succulents Liam hated, but I kept alive. I smiled at neighbors. I made small talk at work. Inside my head, I was building a case. I did not tell Liam. I did not explode. That would have been obvious, messy, and exactly the kind of amateur hour theater Helen would have loved. Instead, I did what felt foreign and clinical. I collected. First thing I did was lock down the practical stuff. I read our prenup, every clause, every line, and then I read it again at midnight, while the house hummed with the sound of a man who didn't know I'd been reading his messages. The prenup was tighter than I expected, but there were loopholes. Not for love, never for that, but for leverage. Joint accounts, our investments, the little vacation condo that meant more to me than it should. I made copies of every document, put originals in a safety deposit box across town, and set up a separate account in my name. I changed passwords, email recovery, phone passcodes, and I did it in a way that wouldn't tip Liam off. Then I hired someone who does this for a living, a private investigator named Marcus, late 40s, gray at the temples. All business, with a quiet voice that said he'd seen heartbreak enough to recognize the smell of it on someone. I didn't want pity. I wanted facts, timestamps, photos. I wanted something so clean and sharp they couldn't argue it away. Marcus delivered in ways that made my stomach drop and my pulse go, "Okay, now you're in it." Within days, he had Lily's license plate, the model of her car, and a collection of photographs. Liam's car pulling into a boutique hotel at 2:13 a.m. Lily stepping out of the passenger side at 2:16 a.m. The same hotel keycard slip with Liam's corporate account number on the tab. There were invoices for dinners covered by a shell company tied to a Helen Turner Holdings email. Marcus also scraped social media. Lily's posts, subtle at first, real estate closings, gala snapshots, then comments that vanished after being saved and cataloged. Helen's fingerprints were on everything in a way that made bile rise in my throat. The gala where they'd first met? Marcus found a photo album from the charity event with Helen and Lily laughing next to each other, a caption on the organizer's site thanking Mrs. Turner for the generous introduction. The word orchestrated felt small. It was an orchestra. While Marcus ghosted the nights and delivered receipts, life kept trying to be normal. Liam kissed me in the kitchen, like nothing had changed. He kissed me the way people kiss a houseplant, fond but clueless. When Helen called the first time, it was all sugar. Emily, darling, you looked tired at last weekend's brunch. Are you taking care of yourself? Her voice was all concern. The voicemail was saved and later timestamped. 3 days later, she showed up at my studio while I was meeting with a client. Helen arrived like a sunbeam with teeth. She asked to have a word in the lobby, and then started in, questions that weren't questions, accusations wrapped in velvet. People talk, you know. Liam's under so much pressure. It's a shame when marriages get fragile. Her smile never touched her eyes. When I asked her to stop implying things about my marriage in front of my client, she laughed, a brittle sound, and stepped closer until our shoulders touched. I recorded the whole exchange, audio on my phone, time-stamped, public scene, recorded proof. That night, there was a smear on my car fender. Not a real scratch, just a perfectly placed smear of something brown, coffee, mud, with a note tucked under the windshield wiper that said, "Watch your home." Helen's script had moved from manipulable to menacing, and for the first time, I realized telling the truth would not be the only fight. I was standing at the edge of a battlefield, and I had to choose my weapons carefully. I'm picking up the thread 2 weeks in, and everything kept getting louder. After the smear on my car, I started sleeping in short bursts and in clothes I could run in. I bought cheap motion sensor lights and a cheap lockbox for the documents I'd already tucked away. Marcus, my PI, installed a micro camera across the street from Lily's building and quietly trailed her to a handful of meetings. His voice over the phone became my steadying metronome. "I'll get you receipts. I'll get you faces. I'll make this ugly and undeniable." He did better than that. The footage he sent first was small and ordinary. A parking entry, Lily unlocking a modern condo. But then the small things knit together into a pattern. Lily meeting with a courier, who handed off an envelope. Lily entering Liam's car after a business lunch. Lily getting into a cab at 1:30 a.m., with a Hermes scarf wrapped like an apology. The smoking gun wasn't a single frame. It was the breadcrumbs, timestamps, repeated routes. The same handful of restaurants at which the receipts matched corporate cards registered to a shell company. Marcus also pulled bank records showing wire transfers, amounts that could easily be framed as consulting fees, but were too frequent and too specific to be legitimate. Then the harassment intensified. A Saturday morning, I found the front door to my studio flung open, a thunder of cold air, and a ceramic vase smashed on the floor. Our wedding cake topper shattered in pieces. Broken glass glittered like cheap confetti. There was a note this time, tucked into the shards. "You're making trouble. Stop." No signature. The tipping point wasn't the note. It was what Helen did next. Helen arrived in person 2 days later. She didn't knock. She let herself into my building using a key someone, no doubt, had given her, and walked straight into my meeting as if she owned the place. The clients made polite noises and edged away. Helen strode up to my counter, took the framed wedding photo we'd hung years ago, the one where Liam's hand was tucked possessively in mine, and flung it down until it cracked in the center. She laughed like someone who just paid a debt. "What a shame," she said, voice syrup-sweet and clinical. "So theatrical, Emily. Are you going to cling to that while you ruin a boy's career?" She stepped closer, fingers brushing my forearm, with the intimacy of a cat marking its territory. I recorded every second. I wanted her to have a time-stamped, undeniable memory of exactly what she did. When I called Liam later that night to tell him, he didn't come. He texted, then called, then finally showed up at 11:30 p.m. Face red, eyes raw. He didn't ask. "Are you okay?" He asked, What the hell are you doing? Did you start this?" He'd already spoken to Helen. She'd spun me into the wild card, a paranoid woman out to make a scene. She told him I'd been acting erratically. She'd mentioned my separate account, like it was some moral failing. The man who'd promised to be my partner stood in the doorway and accused me. He threw a glass. It shattered against the wall, nothing but ceramic and a cloud of whiskey, but the sound was violent enough to hollow out the room. He grabbed for my phone, fingers fumbling, then stopped. He paced. He cried, half anger, half frustration, then left again, as if the house burned behind him. That raw split, him on one side, me on the other, with Helen orchestrating freight trains between us, was when Marcus delivered what I'd been waiting for, a fat USB and a spreadsheet. Line after line of transfers from a PayPal account tied to an LLC named Turner Family Estate, routing through a realtor escrow to Lily's account. Dinner invoices, hotel charges, a recurring gift deposit, the amount of which matched the cash envelope Lily had been photographed receiving. I sat on the floor among shards of our old photo, the cake toppers glaze under my fingers, and felt the equation settle into place. It wasn't just a man having an affair. It was a conspiracy of class and cruelty, and now I had numbers and timestamps and video that would stare everyone blind if I ever chose to use them. I didn't want revenge that burned me. I wanted one that was surgical. But by then, the edges were already starting to glow. The last 2 weeks before Christmas felt like living inside a pressure cooker with the valve broken. Every noise in the house made me flinch. Keys at the door, the clink of a wine glass, the quiet of Liam moving through rooms like a ghost who still thought he owned the furniture. I kept thinking of the spreadsheet Marcus had sent, dates, amounts, account numbers, evidence that read like a ledger of betrayal. I taped those pages to my kitchen cabinet so I could see them while I brushed my teeth, like a talisman and a threat. Helen doubled down. She started turning up at functions where she knew I'd be, charity previews, gallery openings where I taught occasional workshops, always with that immaculate hair and the polite, poisonous smile. Once she cornered me in the coat room at the museum opening, and, with the chandeliers making her pearls look like teeth, hissed, "You're making my son miserable. That's not a look you want at the holidays, dear." She slipped a folded card into my purse. Nothing explicit, just an embossed note. "For everyone's sake." When I opened it in the safety of my car, there was a single sentence in Helen's looping handwriting. "Keep things civil, or else." Civil. As if I were the problem. Liam changed into a different kind of danger. He oscillated between guilt that was performative and fury that was raw. One night he cornered me in the hallway after I'd refused to discuss our problems in front of his mother. He shoved a rolled-up program at me, some gala pamphlet Helen had sent, and hissed, "Why are you making my mother look bad? Why are you trying to dismantle our life?" The glass vase on the side table caught the edge of his sleeve and toppled. He didn't mean to break it. That look of shock on his face was real. Then his voice broke into a sob, and he slammed the front door so hard, the frames rattled. It's astonishing how quickly a man who used to kiss my forehead could turn into someone who made my heart count to 10 before standing up. Lily began appearing in places that made my stomach sink. She came to a neighborhood holiday market where I sometimes sold prints. Helen's invitation, I later learned. She wore a smile that said, "I'm untouchable," and when our eyes met, she smiled wider, as if she'd been waiting for the moment to press an invisible button. A week later, someone keyed the driver's side of my car in a looping initial, L. Not subtle, not accidental. The police took the report, wrote it up, but no arrests. The message landed. They could make quiet violence speak louder than anything I could say. I kept my head down and tightened my web. I'd met with my lawyer, Tracy, 40-something, sharp in cheap suits, and fearless about subpoenas. We arranged for Marcus to hand over everything in a format that could be used in court. Bank statements, time-stamped photos, vendor invoices that matched hotel receipts. Tracy told me to change my phone numbers, increase my security, and under no circumstances confront anyone in public without counsel. "You want clean, Emily," she said. "You want undeniable." That cut both ways. Clean meant surgical. Undeniable meant humiliation, on my terms. At the same time, I started rehearsing my calm. The reveal had to feel like a scalpel, not a shriek. I decided on the date, the Turners' Christmas gathering, Helen's annual thing. Helen considered that meal her crown. She'd invite the press, friends, neighbors. She'd make sure everyone saw how benevolent she could be. It would be the perfect stage. The night before the party, Marcus sent one last file, an audio clip of Helen on the phone with Lily, the voice unmistakable, silvery, domesticated cruelty, saying, "Keep him at dinner. I'll handle his apartment. We can't have Emily making a scene." Helen's plan stitched the affair into a purposeful strategy. I played the clip until the words blurred. I felt something hard and cold settle inside my chest, the part of me that understood now this was personal and political. Not just adultery, but a campaign to dismantle me. I went to bed rehearsing my lines like a liturgy, calm, precise, merciless. This was the moment I'd been building toward. I did not want to be the woman who screamed and broke things. I wanted to be the woman who opened the lights on a lie so bright everyone had to blink. Update. Some of you said "burn it down" in the comments, and my God, I laughed and then I didn't. A handful of DMs told me to go nuclear, social media smear, a viral video, post everything. And I considered it. But others wrote with a steadiness that kept me steady. Check the paper trail, lawyer up. Don't let them gaslight you back into apologies. Marcus's footage and Tracy's advice pointed the same way. Evidence, not spectacle. Also, shout out to the person who said, "slashed tires? Bring a tow truck to Helen's party." Tempting, hilarious, and illegal. Not my move. Big development since the last post. Liam texted me he's worried about how I'll look at the Christmas gathering, and begged me not to make it a scene. He called it concern. I called it the thin, new layer of manipulation. In the past 24 hours, my inbox filled with supportive strangers, weirdly aggressive in-laws, and a dozen people offering safe houses, chauffeurs, and casseroles. If this thread taught me anything, it's that strangers can be kinder than family. I'm filing the subpoenas tomorrow. The reveal will be surgical. No screams, no arson. Just facts on the table. The revenge that people seem to want is messy and loud. The one I want is precise and permanent. You want the part where the knives finally come out? Here it is. The Turners' holiday dinner was a cathedral of sheen. Table long enough to have aisle lighting. A candelabra that looked audition ready for a Vogue shoot. Helen orbiting the room like a queen in a glass cage. I showed up in a simple black dress, no sparkle, no dramatic makeup, on purpose. I wanted nothing that screamed, "Look at me." I wanted my face to be the only honest thing in the room. Marcus and Tracy were at the end of the table, two quiet sentries. Marcus had printed every file we needed and put them in a leather folder. Tracy had her phone on record and a list of everyone who could corroborate dates. I told only a handful of people. My oldest friend Julia, the caterer, so there'd be receipts if someone tried to play, it didn't happen, and the community center manager who'd booked the room. I told them, don't intervene unless I ask. Helen beamed at me from the head of the table, porcelain smile intact. Liam sat beside her, jaw thinner than I'd seen in months. Lily was there, disturbingly composed, a little too shiny, in a red dress, her smile like a greeting card you don't want. The room smelled like roasted chestnuts and pretense. I waited until dessert, until the plates were cleared and the room softened from polite chatter to the dangerous lull when people assume the evening's weathered. Helen raised her glass for a toast, her favorite bit, perform benevolence, rack up social credit. I stood. My voice didn't wobble. I want to say something, I said, simple. They assumed sentiment. I said their names because names make it real. Helen, Liam, Lily. A hush dropped like stage curtains. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I set the leather folder on the table and said, I've been patient. I've been careful. I came here tonight because everyone who helped this happen is in this room. I tapped the USB Marcus had given me. Play this. Tracy hit play. Helen's voice, clear as bell, filled the room. Keep him at dinner. I'll handle his apartment. We can't have Emily making a scene. Then Lily's softer, conspiratorial reply. Then the proof. Photos of Liam's car at the hotel. Receipts with the Turner Family Estate LLC. Wire transfers to Lily's account. Hotel keycard slips. Paperwork. Like a breadcrumb trail that led straight to them. You could hear the breath leave people. The air became thin and electric. Helen's smile died in stages. Denial, confusion, fury. She reached across the table and snatched the folder, fingers trembling. This is a lie, she hissed. Fabricated. Who gave you this? Her voice sharpened into animal. I pushed the folder toward her, a mirror. You did, I said calmly. You introduced him to Lily at the gala. You arranged the payments. You told Lily to keep him at dinner. You told her to handle his apartment. I unfolded the bank printouts and slid them across the linen. These are accountant verified. Marcus photographed all of this. Tracy's got the records. Liam went white. He lunged. Not an elegant move, a grown man's panic. Grabbed a chair and shoved it back so hard it toppled, the plate shattering like a punctuation mark. His voice was raw. Emily, you can't. He tried to reach my hands. I stepped back. He shoved a stack of framed photos off the sideboard. Our wedding portrait hit the floor and split down the middle like a bad omen. That was the moment Helen snapped from brittle to berserk. She slapped the table so her wine spilled like blood across the tablecloth, and then stood up, rims of pearls clicking, and began to scream. It wasn't measured fury. It was a breakdown staged in public, yelling about betrayal, about humiliation, about class and respect. She lunged at Lily and clawed at her dress. Lily shoved back, sending a tray of glasses crashing. Guests screamed. Some stood frozen. Others reached for phones. Then the world tilted. A pair of neighbors, called earlier by a friend who'd suspected Helen would lose it, stepped between Helen and Lily. Someone called security. Lily, finally exposed and trembling, tried to run, but one of Marcus's photos, printed and held up by Julia, showed her handing cash to a courier outside Liam's building. She stopped mid-step, every face in the room, reading the same line. This was planned. Liam sobbed then, a real guttural collapse. I'm sorry, he said over and over, but it had the hollow weight of a man realizing the structure that propped him was gone. Helen screamed that I'd ruined her life. She accused me of extortion. She pulled out her phone, started recording, called one of her charity friends. In seconds, the room filled with the sound of people taking sides, some whispering pity, others outrage. I kept my voice steady as the wreckage rolled around me. I will be filing for divorce, I said, and I will include these records. I looked at Liam, no theater, no vengeance-laced flourish, just a flat truth. He tried to speak. I held up my hand. You had months to end this. You chose not to. Helen chose to weaponize her influence and money to tear us apart. He lunged again, grabbed the back of my chair, and for the first time, a physical anger, desperate, clumsy, met me. The neighbor who'd been between Helen and Lily shoved him off me. Glass shattered. Someone called the police for disturbance. Helen started in on a tirade about defamation and social ruin. I left after the police took statements. I walked out into a cold night with a folder under my arm and our photos in my phone, cracked and honest. Someone had keyed the limo outside, an L looped into the paint like a signature. I didn't cry until later, in my car, hands unclasping the steering wheel, as if I could feel the threads of the life I'd known slipping. There was bruising, verbal and physical. The Turners had been unmasked in front of their congregation. The fallout was not instant catharsis. It was mess. Helen called me obscene names on a voicemail that my lawyer saved. Lily's agent called to demand retractions. She got nothing. Liam texted at 2 a.m., a dozen apologies, some of them begging, some of them pleading, then one that read like a resignation. I don't know who I am without them. I slept on a friend's couch that night with a folder on my chest. It felt heavy in all the ways evidence can be, cold, immovable, real. I had exposed them. They had exploded. The world I'd shared with Liam had shattered into shards and receipts. The hardest thing wasn't the reveal, it was the silence afterward, the weird empty space where a life used to be. But the reveal worked. It was surgical and public and terrible in the right way. I planned the moment not to humiliate for sport, but to make the truth unavoidable. Helen had weaponized class against me. I weaponized facts back. The story didn't end that night. It detonated, and then the debris started moving. The next morning, I woke up on Julia's couch, still in my black dress, with my phone vibrating nonstop, 17 missed calls, 83 unread texts. Half of them from Liam, the others from unknown numbers that I'd bet my life were Helen's friends, those pearls and posh women who lived for gossip, disguised as concern. The first text I opened from Liam just said, "You didn't have to destroy me." That word, destroy. Not betray, not hurt, not leave. Destroy. Like I was some villain in his redemption arc instead of the woman he'd shattered. I turned my phone off. By noon, the story had already leaked. Someone from the dinner had filmed part of the meltdown, Helen screaming, Lily crying, Liam flipping the chair, and it was circulating in group chats like wildfire. Tracy called me before I even knew. "Emily, don't comment publicly. It's already out. Let them eat each other alive. We'll handle the legal side." I watched it once, just once. It was shaky, low-res, and brutal. You could hear Helen's voice cutting through the chaos. She set us up, she planned this. And me, calm, saying, "I planned the truth." Then the glass breaking, then police lights flashing in the windows. Within 48 hours, Liam's company suspended him, pending review of ethical violations. Helen lost her board seat on a local charity due to unbecoming public conduct. Lily's brokerage quietly removed her bio from their website. The Empire of Manners collapsed faster than I expected. But the part no one saw, the part I didn't post, was how ugly it got afterward. Helen started showing up. Twice she came to my studio during business hours. Once she banged on the glass door so hard, the security guard had to escort her out. She screamed that I was ruining her son's life, that no one would hire him, that I'd shamed the Turner name. She called me a gold digger, loud enough to make the intern cry. The second time, she threw a bouquet of wilted roses at my doorstep, petals scattered across the floor, like an apology that turned to mold. Liam wasn't better. He swung between begging and bitterness like a pendulum that refused to stop. One night, he left a note taped to my apartment door. "You made your point? Can we just talk?" Underneath it was his wedding ring. It was bent, not cut, bent like he'd tried to twist it off and couldn't. My lawyer called it harassment. I called it aftermath. And yet, somewhere under all that chaos, there was relief. For the first time in months, I could breathe without listening for someone else's footsteps. I spent my days rebuilding my schedule, focusing on my art commissions, and meeting with Tracy to finalize the divorce. We filed 2 weeks later. I attached everything, every statement, every message, every photo Marcus had collected. Liam didn't contest. He didn't dare. Helen tried to interfere once more. She actually called my lawyer, offering a settlement to keep the evidence sealed, claiming it would protect the family name. Tracy laughed so hard she put it on speaker. "Helen," she said, "the best way to protect your name is to stop calling the people you slandered." After that, silence. Lily disappeared first, moved out of town, deleted her accounts, gone like smoke. Liam, from what mutual acquaintances said, moved back into Helen's house temporarily. Poetic, really. The woman who orchestrated his affair was now his only roommate. But here's the thing. Revenge doesn't feel like fireworks. It's quieter. It's the moment you realize you don't need their apologies to close the door. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt finished. A month later, I went back to my old home for the last time to collect what was left of my things. The house smelled like disinfectant and nostalgia. The wedding photo was gone from the wall, probably smashed, but the faint rectangle of unfaded paint was still there, like a scar on the wall. I ran my fingers over it. Then I saw it, my mug. The one with the chipped handle, the one that said, "Still Becoming." Helen had always mocked it, said it looked cheap. I took it, wrapped it in paper, and left everything else. That was the last time I ever stepped foot in the Turner house. Update. I didn't expect the last post to blow up the way it did. I read through hundreds of comments, people saying they wish they had my composure, others calling me cold, calculating, or the ice queen of poetic justice. Some said I should have just walked away quietly. Some said I should have gone for Helen's throat harder. But one comment stuck with me. Revenge isn't about fire. It's about light. Exactly that. To everyone asking, yes, the divorce was finalized. No, I didn't take him for more than what was fair. I didn't need to. The truth was enough. Helen's charity friends stopped calling, her reputation crumbled, and Liam, last I heard, was trying to find himself. Good luck to him. The strange thing is, I don't feel angry anymore. Just clean. Like I finally vacuumed the dust out of a house that had been suffocating me for years. I'm not naive. I know healing isn't linear. But for now, I've got my studio, my quiet mornings, my chipped mug, and a sense of peace Helen can't buy and Liam can't borrow. And honestly, that's the sweetest revenge there is. I didn't expect peace to feel so strange. For weeks after the divorce papers were signed, my brain still waited for impact, like a hand flinching even when there's no slap coming. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., expecting to hear Liam's keys in the door or Helen's voice on voicemail, and all I'd hear was the hum of the fridge. Silence used to terrify me. Now it felt like oxygen. I moved into a small apartment downtown, above a bookstore that smells like dust and cinnamon. The landlord, an older man with a gentle voice, gave me a discount because he said he liked quiet tenants. The place is barely 600 square feet, white walls, creaky floors, one big window, but it's mine. I furnished it slowly: thrift store couch, secondhand easel, the chipped mug that says, "Still Becoming." That one went on the windowsill like a guardian. My studio started picking up work again, once the chaos died down. A few clients who'd backed off during the scandal came back, pretending they hadn't ghosted. I let them. Money was money. But my best commissions came from strangers. People who'd seen the fallout online and wanted art. That tells the truth. It's strange, isn't it? I became a kind of quiet celebrity for surviving something ugly without turning it into a circus. Tracy joked that I should trademark calm vengeance. Then there was Daniel. He came in one afternoon to pick up a custom frame order for his sister's engagement photo. Tall dark hair, laugh lines that looked earned. When I handed him the piece, he said, "You're Emily Turner, right?" My instinct was to tense Turner that name. But then he added, "Sorry, I read about you in the Chronicle piece on women rebuilding after divorce. Your story was something." I remember laughing, half awkward. That's one word for it. We started seeing each other in those small, unplanned ways. Coffee downstairs after my morning run, helping me carry lumber up the stairs for a project, sitting on the stoop, watching people rush to work, while we did nothing. He was quiet, steady, never pried. He didn't ask about Liam or Helen. He just asked about me. When he learned I painted, he bought me a set of oil pigments, too expensive to waste, and said, "You'll find something worth them." The first time he kissed me, I froze, not from fear, but from realizing I wasn't angry anymore. It felt like standing in sunlight after years underground. Helen tried one last time to reach out. Of course she did. A letter hand-delivered by courier, thick cream paper with her perfect cursive. "You've made your point. Let's end this feud before it consumes us all." I didn't reply. Tracy said I should forward it to my lawyer, but I just shredded it and threw it away. The feud had already ended. She just hadn't noticed she'd lost. Liam's last message came 3 weeks later, an email with no greeting. "I'm sorry. I know you won't answer, but I need you to know I'm getting help. Mom's not well." I think she finally sees what she did. I didn't reply to him either. Compassion and forgiveness aren't the same thing, and I didn't owe him both. Christmas came again almost a year after the dinner. I spent it at Julia's house with her kids, decorating gingerbread that kept collapsing. She raised her glass halfway through dinner and said, "To Emily, who taught us revenge can be beautiful if you color inside the lines." Everyone laughed, but I felt something inside me unclench. Later that night, I stood outside watching the lights in the snow and thought about everything. The lies, the evidence, the way Helen's pearls rattled like guilt when the truth hit. And then I thought about the small things that had survived. The chipped mug, the smell of paint, Daniel's laugh, my own reflection that finally didn't look like a stranger. People keep calling what I did revenge, but it never was. It was reclamation. For the first time in years, I wasn't Liam's wife or Helen's target. I was just Emily, and that was enough. And